Hi, I want to thank everybody for either logging in here live today for a presentation, or anyone who's watching this on a recorded version. Thank you for taking some time out to learn a little bit more today on what you can do with your old 401k. Today's presentation will focus primarily on self-directed IRAs and kind of the unique things to do, but we are going to spend a good deal of time talking about old 401ks, old employer-based plans, and kind of what you can do with those types of plans and how that process works. My name is Scott Maurer. I'm the Education Marketing Director for Advanta IRA. I'm also a member of the Florida Bar, so I have a legal background. I don't do any legal work for Advanta clients or give any advice in that area, but I've been with the company now for a number of years. I started out primarily working with individuals who were making investments into real estate, private notes, some of the other things that we'll talk about today. Transitioned more the last few years into giving seminars, presentation, webinars like this one that you're listening to today, and really trying just to educate people more on self-direction and what is possible to do with your IRA account. Now, quick disclaimer, Advanta IRA does not endorse any particular investments. We also do not provide investment advice. It is up to an individual to consult with their attorneys, their financial advisors, accountants, other professionals in certain areas that can give them those particular pieces of advice before going in any type of investment. Now, we'll talk about some legal and tax issues from time to time, but as far as determining whether or not something is right for you to do, or kind of going over when things get into a gray area legally-wise, whether you should or should not make that investment, we do encourage you, and we can give you referrals for people in those fields to give you more guidance and actually give you the advice on what you should or should not be doing with the account. Our company's been around since 2004. The only thing we do is self-directed IRA administration. We don't do any retirement planning per se, and we don't handle any non-qualified monies. The monies in the funds that we hold have to be either an IRA or, as we'll see today, some type of old employer-sponsored plan that is maybe being rolled into an IRA for us to administer. So we can't take anyone's personal savings accounts or act as a property manager in that aspect. We also have dedicated account managers who offer what we call basically a local feel to anyone no matter where you're located. Obviously, a lot of our clients may be based here in the Tampa Bay area where our office is, but even for those clients who are not geographically close to us, the fact that they get a dedicated account manager, one person who will oversee all aspects of their account, be their one point of contact, I really think that gives people a much better feel, much more better comfort level in dealing with our office when they know exactly who it is that they will be working with. Now, why haven't a lot of people heard about the different investment options? We talked about just a minute ago, I said about investing in real estate, investing in notes within an IRA, other types of alternative investments. Most people don't realize that's possible because the current custodian of their account, whether it be an old 401k, whether it be an IRA or a Roth IRA, the custodian of those plans, generally speaking, are banks and brokerage firms that don't offer them or don't offer their clients all of the different investment opportunities that are out there, and actually those things that the IRS will allow you to invest in. They just don't have that broader range. IRS regulations allow you to invest in quite a number of different assets, but each custodian is able to decide what it is they are willing to hold within an IRA account. So the banks and brokerage firms, that's why they sell mutual funds, CDs, stocks. Not interested in holding real estate, private notes, or some of the other alternatives that we'll talk about a little bit today as well. Now, why do people self-direct their IRA funds into alternative assets? Again, we're going to cover primarily not talking about stocks, bonds, and mutual funds today, but a lot of the different things people use those old 401ks to do. Why would someone look at using a retirement account to invest in an alternative asset, whether that's real estate, maybe a private placement like a hedge fund? I really think probably most people fall into one or two categories, maybe both, in the fact that, first off, the IRA or the 401k can be a new source of capital for them when making investments. A lot of people, again, are going back to the last slide, have money in a CD at a bank. They have money in a mutual fund account with a brokerage firm. They don't realize that this is possible to use this cash to actually invest in these alternative assets. So they're presented with an investment opportunity, whether it be a real estate opportunity again or some type of private lending capacity, and don't realize, hey, this money I have sitting here in my IRA or my old 401k can actually be used. So when they find out that's possible, they then decide that that's the vehicle with which they will make the investment. Another big aspect of investing an IRA or 401k into these assets is the notion of the tax-deferred or potentially tax-free investing returns that the IRAs give you. Regular IRAs and 401ks, the income you generate back into the plan is not taxed as it's generated. It's only taxed to you down the line when you get to retirement age. So the benefit there is that if you're going to have an income-producing investment, you're going to have potentially some good returns, but you don't want that extra tax burden personally. By doing the investment in your IRA account, you're deferring the taxes until later. And even better than that is if you have a Roth IRA account and you're investing through a Roth IRA, those are tax-free entities. So not only are you not paying taxes now on the income that is being generated into a Roth IRA, you're never going to pay taxes on those monies again within the Roth. So again, most people, when they're looking to self-direct, it's one of those two reasons. Either they're looking because it's a new source of capital, or the fact that it's tax-deferred or tax-free investing. Now, of course, the types of assets that can be held within a self-directed IRA, any type of real estate. Probably the most common asset we see at Advanta is real estate in some form or fashion. A lot of raw lands. You can do commercial property. Probably the most common thing we see would be long-term rentals, whether it's a condo, a single-family home, even a couple duplexes and triplexes as well. And we have a number of people who do short-term investing with rehabs and flip projects as well, and those can certainly be done within an IRA account. We have a lot of what I call paper assets. The real estate is more of a hard asset, something you can actually look at and touch. But a paper asset could be like any type of loan involving your IRA account. So your IRA being a private lender for a third party, and the IRA either holding a mortgage loan, maybe the IRA is holding an unsecured note, and obviously an unsecured note, a little riskier type of investment to make, and you really need to feel comfortable with whom you're dealing with if you're going to make an unsecured loan. We see a lot of tax liens, option contracts, people doing assignments, taking title or getting a property under contract or getting an asset, getting the rights to an asset, and then assigning the right to buy that asset for a fee coming back in the IRA as well. A lot of interesting things you can do with paper assets, more so maybe than real estate. Real estate, you're probably looking at just buying a property, either rehabbing it or renting it long term. Paper, sometimes we see people get a lot more creative with different things they can do. Certainly the other alternatives, you have stocks, bonds, and mutual funds that you can invest in with an IRA. And similarly to that, within a kind of a self-directed IRA, there's a lot of LLCs or partnerships or private corporations that will offer you stock or ownership as well. But because they're not publicly traded companies, you can't buy that type of asset through a broker-dealer, someone like a Schwab or a Fidelity. They're not willing to hold those private LLCs, those private partnerships, and those companies are formed for a variety of reasons. Here at our office in Tampa, we've seen LLCs formed to invest in real estate. There's actually been people forming an LLC to get 5 or 10 people together to all buy the same piece of real estate, and having the IRA as one of the members. People also investing into restaurants, other hedge funds, private corporations that are just starting up and looking for initial capital, community banks. There's a lot of different things you can do. And those types of assets people seem to be more comfortable with, or at least more familiar with, because it looks like you're buying stock in a company, which you are. It's just something that's not publicly traded. Therefore, you need to have someone like Advanta to actually hold that type of asset. But it makes intrinsically more sense to some people to invest in an LLC or into a private company than maybe real estate or do other types of loans. You can also invest in precious metals, foreign currency trading, investing in commodities as well. A lot of commodities dealers out there. You can set up a trading account with them for your IRA as well. Now, as far as the types of accounts that can be self-directed, I won't spend too much time on this, but any type of IRA, a traditional or Roth IRA, which are the individual retirement accounts, can be self-directed. If you have a SEP or a simple, and usually these might be for someone who's a sole practitioner, someone who owns their own business, or maybe someone who works for a small business may have a SEP or simple IRA set up, you can certainly self-direct those accounts as well. So if you weren't sure if your account can be self-directed or not, if the designation IRA is somewhere on there, whether it's a traditional Roth, SEP, simple, or even maybe a beneficiary or inherited IRA, you can certainly self-direct those funds into different types of assets. We also offer individual 401k plans for those people who are looking to start their own business, or looking maybe they're a sole proprietor and want the benefits that are offered by a 401k. And we also offer education and health savings accounts, and again, those are not retirement accounts per se, but they do follow a lot of the rules that we'll talk about during the presentation today. Here are the contribution limits for 2014 for the different types of accounts that we were just talking about. Again, there's different limits for your traditional and your Roth IRA, much higher contribution limits for the SEP and the Simple. So for individuals who are self-employed, looking at maximizing how much money they can put away in a given year, the SEP, Simple, or possibly even the 401k can give an individual ability to contribute a lot more money each year into their retirement account. And I'm going to go over a little bit of the terminology, and this will be important here as we go into talking about old 401ks, old 403bs, and other types of employers' plans, because there's different ways you can move money between one retirement account to another. And the terminology is important in the industry to make sure that everything is treated correctly from a tax perspective. The first way to move money is called a transfer, and this is essentially moving money from a like account to a like account without the money ever touching the individual owner's hands. So if you're moving money from a traditional IRA at Charles Schwab to a traditional IRA at Advanta, that is called a transfer. The money goes directly from the Schwab account into the Advanta account. It does not touch your hands, therefore it's a non-taxable, non-reportable event. And you can do transfers as often and whenever you'd like. Another way to move money is called a direct rollover, and this is what is important, what we're talking about here in just a moment when we talk about employer-sponsored plans, your 401ks, your 403bs. Any type of employer-sponsored plan where you've left an employer and you have money sitting there that you would like to roll over into an IRA, it's usually done by a direct rollover. Again, you complete forms or go through the process with the administrator of the employer-sponsored plan, directing them to send the money into your IRA account without you touching it. Again, when you make that direct rollover, it's a non-taxable event to you as the individual. So it makes it a much cleaner transaction, especially when it comes tax time and you're doing your 1040s. The last way to move funds is not preferred way, at least in our experience, to move money, and that's you can move money via an indirect rollover. That involves you taking possession of the money from an IRA or from an employer's plan, and the IRS says if you take a distribution from one of those accounts, you have 60 days in which you can get that money back into an IRA to avoid any tax repercussions. So you could actually take a distribution from your IRA or from your 401k into your personal account, and then you have if in the next 60 days you put that money back into another IRA, then you won't have any tax consequence. The big hiccup and hang-up on this type of movement of money is it can only be done once per 12 months and once across all of your IRA accounts. So if you were to inadvertently do this twice, that second distribution will be ineligible to be rolled back over, resulting in a taxable event to you as the account holder. So what types of employer-sponsored plans are there? I'll go over kind of some of the more popular ones, the more common ones we see. Certainly the 401ks. These have been something over the last several years have become much more in vogue for companies to offer their employees, and that's because the 401ks are what they call a defined contribution plan. It allows an individual, any clients or any individuals who are participating in a 401k, it allows them to defer a portion of their salary, and the company defines the profit sharing match that they will make. Some companies might do a 3 or 4% match of whatever you put in. They can do upwards of 25% if they wish. So it's a defined contribution because the company is telling you up front, well, if you participate in this 401k and you make a contribution, we're defining exactly what we're going to contribute into that 401k plan for you. And I'll contrast that with the pension plan at the bottom in just a moment. You also see 403bs. It's another type of an employer-sponsored plan, but this usually involves public education employees, teachers, the staff at schools. There are also some nonprofit organizations as well. So individuals who work for one of those types of organizations build up money within that type of plan That's just another again, in these code sections, the 401k, 403b, and next the 457, those refer to the actual sections of the IRS code that provides for the setup and establishment of these types of retirement plans. Now 457, there's a deferred comp plan for governmental employees. So there's a way, again, for them to defer a portion of their compensation. Again, these are for government employees. 457s typically can be a lot of just any type. It could be a local or state government, possibly even federal government as well. There's also a lot of people who are familiar with TSP plans, certainly members of the military, other civil service employees like the post office employees. A 457 a TSP plan TSP is a thrift savings plan. It's a defined contribution plan for individuals, again, for the United States Civil Service or members of the military, again, similar to a 401k type plan where they defer a portion of their salary into that type of plan each year. Lastly, the pension plan. Now, this is, again, something we don't see, or you're not going to find quite as common anymore, that employers are offering to their employees, and this is the reasoning behind it. A pension plan is a defined benefit plan. So if you worked for a company and they established a defined benefit plan for you, they would tell you, okay, when you retire, when you reach a certain age, this is the benefit that we're going to give you. We're going to give you X number of dollars per month once you hit a certain age for the rest of your life, or to you and your descendants, etc. So it's up to the company with a pension plan, anyone who's offering a pension plan, to make sure that the funds will indeed be there when the individuals are reaching retirement age. So you have a number of employees who are all going to be drawing on their pension. It is up to the company to make sure the pension plan is adequately funded and that the money has been invested properly to ensure that there's not going to be a shortfall down the road. Again, these are the pension plans were more common years ago, and that's really the reason why we have the switch to the 401ks over the last decade or two, is the fact that prior with pension plans, the company was on the hook to make sure the money was invested properly and made sure that the individual, the cash was indeed there. With the 401ks, the companies kind of shifted the burden to the individual and said, we will define how much we're going to put in up front. And it's going to be up to you then to grow your account, make investments, etc., in order to actually have the money to live on in retirement accounts. That's really, again, the reason why we see a shift now to 401ks from those pension plans. So if you have money in an old employer plan, I keep saying 401k just because it's the most common, but any type of old employer plan. And what we do mean by old employer, we mean someone who you're no longer working for. If you're no longer working for the government, you're no longer working for the company that was offering you the 401k or pension plan, the IRS has stated you have the ability to take that money and move it into an IRA account. So you can grab control of those funds and invest them how you see fit. If you're working for a current employer, so you're working for a company now who's offering you a 401k, you may be limited in how much you can actually take from that account, if anything. So a lot of times we talk about, again, the title of the seminar, what can I do with my old 401k? Because if you have a former employer's plan, there's no restriction on you moving that money out into an IRA account. So again, if you're you have money in an old employer plan, if you elect to move it to either like a traditional or a SEP IRA, there's no tax consequence. That's a direct rollover from a 401k or an old employer's plan that is tax deferred into a tax deferred traditional or SEP IRA. So you can certainly do that type of rollover. There is zero tax consequence to you for making that transition. Now we do have individuals who have elected instead, they have money in that old employer plan and want to roll it over, but instead of rolling it into a traditional or a SEP IRA that's tax deferred, they want to get the money into a Roth IRA so that their money can begin working for them on a tax-free basis. And if you roll money from an employer's plan into a Roth IRA, it's treated the same way as a conversion. Now, a conversion is when you take money that's in a traditional IRA and you move it to a Roth IRA, you elect to pay the taxes now on the money that's being moved from the traditional to the Roth, and then going forward, that money is growing tax-free within that Roth IRA account. So an employer plan can be moved into a Roth IRA. Just whatever amount goes from the employer's plan into the Roth is going to be considered taxable income to you the year that rollover was indeed made. This next slide, it really illustrates something we ran across an individual at one point, or a couple individuals who were making this mistake, and it's kind of why we've included this slide, is that if you're looking at investing in an alternative asset, like real estate, private placements, things like that, is don't take the money out of your 401k or your IRA even to buy an asset in your personal name. And this is the exact scenario we had there at the bottom. We had we didn't have a client. It was a prospective client talking with us. They didn't know that they didn't know about self-direction, and they saw our sign at a trade show and said, "Oh, okay, what is it that you do?" And we explained, we help people buy real estate within an IRA account. They said, "Oh, we've kind of been doing that for years. We just pull the money out of our 401k as we come across the property, and then just use the cash to buy the property in our personal name." But what was happening is they were taking the money out of their 401k just to themselves personally. That's a distribution. It's a taxable event subject to possible 10% early withdrawal penalty depending on an individual's age, but certainly it's going to be included in their income for that year, and then certainly any income generated by that property or any profits they made for buying that asset was going to be taxable to them as well. What they should have done is taken the money in that 401k, rolled it out into an IRA, and again, that last slide we had, there'd be no tax consequence for making that transfer or doing that rollover into a traditional IRA account, then using the traditional IRA to go out and buy the investment property. They would have saved probably 20 to 30% of their purchasing power by leaving the money within the tax shelter of an IRA rather than pulling out and subjecting those funds to taxes. Again, we talked about this earlier with some possible IRA investments. Certainly, you roll out any type of real estate. We have a lot of private paper assets, the mortgage loans, the unsecured notes, tax liens, etc. And again, a third category, there are the LLCs and the partnerships, CDs, bonds, things maybe more people can be familiar with, precious metals, mutual funds, stock, etc. Now, the IRS does not have a list of all of the permissible investments you can make within an IRA. The IRS simply has a list of what you are not permitted to do within an IRA account, or any type of retirement account for that matter. You cannot purchase life insurance. You cannot purchase certain collectibles, and collectibles would include your antiques, your alcohol, artwork, things like that, things that are rare. For instance, the stamps and coins. You can certainly buy certain gold, silver, and platinum American Eagles and coins like that. But if you're looking at investing in a coin it's rare, that's where the value comes in, that's going to be a collectible that's not permitted to be held within an IRA account. A question just came up. I wanted to take quickly here and answer it before we move on. The question is, if the 401k is a Roth, then if you move the money to a Roth IRA, is there no tax consequence? And kind of going back, it is possible to have a Roth 401k where your salary that you defer into a 401k, you can designate as a Roth contribution, and those monies and the earnings that are attributable to the monies you've put in as a Roth salary deferral can, yes, be moved into a Roth IRA with no tax consequence. But any money that you have that is profit sharing, that kind of the employer's match that is moving into the Roth IRA, would be subject to tax. That is kind of an important distinction. I think the questioner for submitting that, if your 401k is just a traditional 401k and you're moving it to a Roth, the whole amount is going to be taxable. But if your 401k has a portion of it that is a Roth 401k, you can certainly roll the money from the Roth 401k to a Roth IRA with no tax consequence. So getting back to our slide again, the prohibited investments are life insurance and collectibles. Now, the IRS also, though, places a restriction on who your IRA can transact with. And for your IRA account or your retirement account, the disqualified persons include yourself as the IRA owner, your spouse, your parents and grandparents, and your children and grandchildren, as well as spouses of any of those lineal descendants as well. So if you're looking at wanting to lend money from your retirement account to your son or to your daughter or to one of their spouses, that's going to be a prohibited investment. Or if you want to have your IRA purchase a piece of property that one of these individuals is going to live in or is going to rent from you or from your retirement plan, that's going to be prohibited as well. So the IRS doesn't like you dealing too closely with these individuals Even regardless of the terms involved, even if you were lending money, for instance, to your son at the same rate the bank was going to charge him, the IRS would still say that that's a prohibited transaction for using your IRA account. Now, they do extend the disqualified persons to include any business or entity that is owned or controlled by one of these individuals as well. So you don't get around the rule by lending money to your son's company or something like that. Or if you own a piece of property in your own LLC, you can't then have your IRA buy it from that LLC as well. Some people are surprised to learn that brothers and sisters are actually not disqualified parties, as well as aunts, uncles, and cousins. Now, although they may not be disqualified under the rules, as far as saying these are someone who actually would be disqualified regardless of terms, there's ways those individuals still could generate a prohibited transaction. We'll talk about that in a minute. But on its face, a brother and sister, aunts, uncles, cousins are not disqualified individuals. Now, prohibited transaction involves three elements: your IRA or your retirement account, a disqualified person, and then a transaction going on between those two individuals. And I define transaction is that when you're thinking about any type of scenario where you have opposing sides, you have buyer on one side, you have a seller on the other, or a landlord on one side and a tenant on the other, or a borrower and a lender, and so forth. If your IRA and a disqualified person are on opposite sides of that transaction, it's going to be prohibited. So if my IRA, going back to that example I mentioned a minute ago, I would like my IRA to lend money to my son. Well, my IRA is the lender, my son is the borrower. That's a transaction then between the IRA and a disqualified person. That's going to be prohibited. What is possible is partnering with the disqualified person. Picturing that same scenario where you have opposing sides, if your IRA and a disqualified person are on the same side of that transaction, that could be acceptable within a type of investment. So if rather than loaning money to my son to buy a piece of property, my son puts up some of his cash towards the purchase and my IRA puts up the rest of the cash to buy it from a third party, well, in that situation, both my IRA and my son are buyers in that transaction, doing a deal with someone on the other side who's unrelated to us. That type of situation and that type of investment strategy is permissible. We see a lot of partnering involving, we have a husband's IRA and a wife's IRA, for instance, both being used to make an investment in a piece of property and holding it as tenants in common. The only key thing with partnering is to make sure that whatever percentage your IRA owns, that's the percentage it needs to receive back in the transaction. I mentioned brothers and sisters and other family members. They're not the disqualified persons. There's still ways that you could do something prohibited with them. If you're going to deal with one of those individuals for less than fair market value, so I wanted to lend money to a brother or a sister at, say, 1 or 2% on an unsecured loan, well, any bank or any third party is going to charge your brother or sister, a much higher rate for any type of either secured or unsecured loan. So if you're doing this deal with them and giving them kind of a really nice and really good deal that you would not give a third party, the IRS could certainly argue that you're still benefiting in some way from that transaction, whether it's an intrinsic benefit that you're getting because you're helping somebody out or helping a brother or sister out. That's not an appropriate use for your IRA account. And again, they would consider that to be very likely prohibited. So we caution you, if you're going to deal with brothers and sisters, other family members, you want to make sure it's for an arm's length basis, an arm's length transaction, and you're not receiving any other benefit out of the deal other than the profits or interest that they're paying back to your IRA account. You also cannot use a middleman between your IRA and a disqualified person. So I cannot lend money from my IRA to a friend of mine and then have my friend of mine in turn lend that money to my son. If that's my intent, is to circumvent that rule and to do that transaction, the IRS would consider that, they call it a step transaction. I took everything out one step, but it still is prohibited. You cannot use your IRA asset for your own current benefit or enjoyment. So you cannot use an IRA funds to purchase your own home that you intend to live in or vacation in. It's got to be strictly for investment. You are not supposed to get any type of current personal benefit from ownership of that property. And it's kind of sticking with the real estate theme, you also cannot provide sweat equity for your IRA-owned assets. If your IRA owned a piece of real estate and the property needed to be painted, it needed a new roof, the IRS would expect your IRA to contract and then pay for that work to be done using some third party who's not a disqualified person. So you cannot go in and paint the property yourself, put in a new carpet, etc. Your IRA would be expected to pay a third party for that work. I want to switch kind of gears now and go into some case studies just to illustrate how the process works of self-directing, what our role is, certainly what the client's role is when investing in these different types of assets. Our first case study is just an investment into raw land. It's important when the individual is buying a piece of property especially, and other assets as well, is that the ownership be reflected in the name of the IRA account. So in the case of buying a piece of raw land, the purchase contract needs to be in the name of the IRA account showing Advanta IRA Services, LLC, for benefit of John Smith's IRA as the actual owner on the particular property. A representative from Advanta would sign off on that contract. The client would also mark it as approved for us as well. But that's key to show the IRS that the owner of the real estate is indeed the IRA account. So there's no, this is not going to be something that's personally owned. The funds are leaving the IRA to make an investment on behalf of the IRA account. So that's why it's a non-taxable event for the funds to leave the IRA to buy this property. It's just the same as the IRA buying a mutual fund. In this case, it's just different paperwork and a different type of asset. The client will complete a purchase authorization form telling us, giving us the property address, the contract purchase price, and also giving us the name of the title company, the attorney, the escrow agent that is actually going to handle, in this case, the real estate closing. Now, we will work with that individual or that company to make sure that the wording that appeared on the contract above in this slide also appears on all of the closing documents. The settlement statement, the deed, the title commitment, etc., all needs to show the IRA account as the owner. We also, again, will make sure the client reviews and approves the documents by initialing off on each page, showing, I have approved this, I've looked over the settlement statement, this is correct, etc. That gives us the authority to go ahead and sign the documents and send the funds to closing. Now, the individual were to sell this lot and make a profit within 7 months. Well, not in the non-IRA situation, this would be ordinary income tax. So they have a kind of significant tax bill based on the profits made. And even if it was outside of a year, 13 months, so they still have capital gains tax considerations. If you're looking at making this investment and didn't want whatever income you generated to be taxable to you now, that's a reason, again, why people use an IRA, because it's a tax-deferred entity, where any tax repercussions that happen for these investments are all coming back into the IRA, not affecting an individual on a personal level. Our next example is Paul and Linda, and this is a partnering type situation where each has money in an IRA account. Let's say Paul and Linda are married. So again, they couldn't lend money from one IRA to the other, but they could use the funds in each of their IRAs to buy the same property and hold the title as tenants in common. So they find a house that's more that is the purchase price, and the rehab work is going to be more than either one of them has in their own IRA accounts. So you agree to partner up on this deal. Now, in this situation, it's going to be simple. It's going to be 50-50. It could be 60-40. It could be 70-30. It doesn't matter, just as long as the percentage that's owned by each account is relative to the percentage that the money being contributed from that particular IRA account. So they have enough money between the two IRAs to buy the property, also to get it fixed up, and then have the rent, and then have the cash flow coming back into the account. So Paul and Linda will open up and transfer funds from their current IRAs over into their Advanta account. Again, similarly to the last example, they're going to find the investment property and make the offer to purchase in the name of their IRA accounts. And then once that has been done, submit the purchase authorization form to us, again telling us what property it is that they're buying, what the contract price is, and what percentage that each is going to own within the particular IRA account. And again, also letting us know who the title company is that is involved in the transaction, so that we can deal with them, tell them exactly how the property needs to be titled, and then go forward and move on the purchase. And in this case, again, Paul and Linda will both have to review and approve all the transaction documents in order for us to make that investment. The deed for a piece of property when it's titled as tenants in common would reflect both IRA accounts and would need to state the percentage of interest between the two as well. And again, the percentage is going to be based on the amount that is contributed from each IRA, no more and no less. It would not be possible for Paul's IRA to put up 80% of the purchase price and have his wife's and have Linda put up 20% and then say the property's owned 50-50. It would need to be according to the exact percentage that went into the purchase, and then that's going to be how all the income and expenses are split going forward. And any expenses that come up, the repairs, the maintenance, taxes, insurance, etc., must be paid out of the IRA accounts directly, so that Paul and Linda would send the bills to Advanta. We will then cut a check out of their account to be mailed to their vendor. And again, it's going to be according to the percentage of ownership. So if they are a split deal like this, we will pull money from both Paul's account and Linda's account to make those and pay for those expenses. And also, once they have this property rented, they can have their tenants simply send us one check. One check made out to their IRA accounts, we'll receive it, and then split it according to the percentage of ownership as well, back in for deposit into their IRA accounts. We'll switch gears a little bit and stay within the real estate realm, but talk a little bit about private lending. There's a lot of individuals out there who are interested in doing private lending. They don't necessarily want to buy property either for rehab and have to deal with deciding what needs to be done and overseeing a rehab project, or they don't even want to be a landlord per se. But they are interested in being a private lender where they can get just back a set interest rate, or maybe doing, in this case with Laura, an equity participation loan where she's going to lend money to someone who's going to fix up a property, and in addition to getting back an interest rate, she's going to negotiate and get a percentage of the upside of that particular deal as well. Now she meets Ray, who is someone who's looking for a loan, looking to buy it and acquire a piece of property, get it fixed up, and hopefully sell it and turn it for a quick profit. So she performs her due diligence on Ray. Again, going back to one of the first slides we talked about today, we at Advanta do not do due diligence on an investment. So in this case, in this situation, it's very important that Laura not only look at the subject property to make sure it's a good property to invest in, but also do her due diligence on Ray as well and make sure he's an upstanding guy. He's going to do what he says. So she has no qualms about lending him, in this case, $80,000 towards the purchase of the property. Now when you're lending from an IRA, or in that matter, I guess non-IRAs as well, but when you're lending money, you get to stand in the place of a bank and establish the loan terms. How much are you willing to lend, how much, what the amount to be borrowed is going to be, the interest rate that you're going to charge, the length of term, how long is this loan going to be out for? If I'm lending this money to Ray, when do I want him to fully pay me back? Am I okay with a 10-year term on a more conventional type mortgage, or do I want this money back within a year once he's hopefully fixed up this property and sold it, or else I have the ability to foreclose? You can include terms on whether the loan is amortized or interest only, if there's prepayment penalties, and certainly any equity participation terms as well. If you want to include not just an interest rate, but also a portion of any profits, we certainly have seen clients and investors do that as well. But establishing those loan terms is solely up to you as the IRA owner, same as if somebody came to you and then just asked you personally to borrow $100, and you make a lot of those determinations for someone offering, someone who wants to borrow $100 from you is, are they someone I would lend to? When are you going to pay me this $100 back? Are you going to put anything on top of that as well to make it worth my while? Once you're IRA, you're making those same determinations and really standing in the same place that a bank would be. So in this case, she agrees to lend, Laura lends $80,000 to Ray. She charges him only 6%, but she wants 25% of any profit. So however they determine that, how profits would be calculated, she is going to get 25% of any profits from there. And she does have a 2-year maturity date on this. If Ray is running into issues, running into problems, or even if it's maybe he's renting the property, he's going to have to buy her out or at least get the mortgage refinanced within 2 years so she can have her IRA fully paid back. Now the last scenario we'll talk about today is something that's a little bit more interesting. We've had a lot of people do over the last few years with their IRA accounts. It's kind of just a different strategy for investing. But this involves what they call in the industry as checkbook control. Somebody using either an LLC or a trust as an investment vehicle, their IRA invests into that entity, and then that entity will be in charge with buying or selling the different types of assets. Now, the checkbook control typically is achieved using either an LLC or a trust that is owned 100% by an IRA account. So there is no other money going into that LLC or into that trust other than the IRA funds. And then having an individual, someone who's not Advanta IRA, controlling the checkbook. So rather than buying a piece of property in your IRA account and sending us the bills to pay and also sending the rents for us to deposit, people have chosen to use this checkbook control entity to have everything funnel through there. Essentially, they will be in control of the checkbook to pay the bills, fund investments, and also receive and deposit any income. Now, if you're looking at doing this type of entity, we strongly suggest getting an attorney involved, or at least getting some outside advice on how you making sure you set this up properly, and also making sure then as well that you abide by the rules and keep the LLC and trust compliant as far as IRS guidelines go as well. If you are the IRA owner and you want to have the control and you want to have the full control over the checkbook, it would have to be set up as an LLC, and we do again encourage you to talk with an attorney before doing that. If you decide to use a trust, this is an important distinction. If you decided to use a trust as your checkbook entity rather than an LLC, then you will need to find a third party, someone who's not a disqualified person, to act as your trustee. The rules are just a little bit different with trusts and LLCs and who is a fiduciary. So it's very important, if you're using a trust, that you find a third party. There are some custodians who will offer what they call a one-stop shop. At least that's what I refer to them as. They will set up the IRA, they will set up the LLC, and they'll probably charge you, $4 or $5 grand to get that entire kind of thing set up to then make the investment. They say they have an IRS-approved LLC, and I can tell you they've read the same court case, the Swanson v. Commissioner case from the mid-'90s that I have as well. There's also a more recent case that came out that supported this industry and supported the ability for an individual to use their IRA funds in this particular manner. Essentially, this case of Swanson involved an individual taxpayer who set up a corporation that was owned by his IRA and named himself as president, and the tax court held that the mere fact of him acting as president was not a disqualifying event. They did not get into other things, for instance, him paying himself a salary or adding personal money in later, to other things like that we feel that would probably be prohibited. So that's why we do encourage any individuals, even if you set up this type of entity, talk with your advisor, talk with your attorney who's helping you set it up to make sure you know what all you should or should not do within that particular LLC or entity going forward. Certainly the advantages to using these types of entities is you get more control over your cash. If you are making an investment, you have bills that are coming up. You have that checkbook at your disposal to write those checks, act more quickly possibly, especially if you're looking at an auction property or deals where you need funds extremely quickly. The LLC and the trust can be a faster way for you to go. I can tell you we are pretty quick about getting these things done regardless. If you have an investment, we usually can get a check or a wire out within a day or two, provided we have all the appropriate paperwork. And if you're in touch with us ahead of time, we can certainly let you know what would be needed. But a lot of people do like anonymity, the anonymity factor as well. The name on the deed, as we kind of showed earlier with those other examples, the other examples have an individual's name on it. They have their IRA and the fact that property is owned by an IRA and it's an IRA account number. And some people like to be kind of more invisible than that. So using a trust or an LLC would help protect the fact that they or their IRA own that particular property. Again, that's up to an individual's decision. We can omit a name or the account number when doing a deed. It has to, one of the two has to be on there if we are going to hold title, though, so we can at least identify the property. One other advantage, though, is you can also hold more assets and pay lower fees. We consider the IRA LLC or the trust to be one asset in your account and subject to only one annual fee. Now, even if that LLC or trust owns multiple assets and you're doing multiple deals, you're only being charged one fee for us. The disadvantages, I think, is the lack of oversight by the IRA administrator. You're not having someone actually look at your different investments. If you're doing all the investments through the IRA, we are going to have to be checking and signing off on all of those before we will make the investment. But when you have the trust or LLC, you do have the ability just to simply write the check and make the investment. So I encourage people who do have these types of entities still can call us and ask us for any input we might have on a potential deal they have coming to make sure they don't run afoul of the rules. But I think even bigger than that, one of the bigger areas where people could have trouble or could get into trouble really is the fact that there's a lot of probably improper record keeping. Our job is really as a record keeper and administrator of your account is to keep a very accurate log of the monies in and the monies out of your IRA account and accounting for every dime in and out. Now, if the IRS were to ever audit your IRA, we can run a statement that simply shows where all the money in your account has gone and have the backup documentation to support those bills or the income coming in. If you are running your own LLC or trust, you're going to need to have the similar records. If they were to audit your LLC, you need to be able to show the IRS all the money in and out of that account as well. So I think that's one of the biggest areas where people could get into trouble with these types of entities is not keeping good records and not keeping track of all the money in and out of the account. And it's also easy to engage in a prohibited transaction. Again, we went over the rules that you can't lend money to your son, you can't lend money to a daughter or yourself. If you have that checkbook authority and you forget the rules and don't bother to take the time to look them up, you could engage in a prohibited transaction without really even thinking about it. You're just able to write the check, so you do it out of the account, you make the investment, and only realize later, hey, I shouldn't have done it. And having that checkbook made it much easier for you to do that type of prohibited investment. Well, that concludes our webinar today. Again, if someone's looking at getting started, it's very easy to get an account open and funded. And then also choosing the investment that you wish to make. A lot of the clients that we have come to us really with an investment idea already in mind, and then come to us to actually get the account open and get the investment purchased in the name of the IRA account. I would encourage anyone who's interested in learning more to go to our website at advantaira.com. Sign up for other trainings that we have. We do live seminars here at our office in Largo. We also do a lot of webinars throughout the month on different topics. We have one coming up in a few weeks on crowdfunding, so I'd encourage you to be a part of that as well. But you can always visit our website at Advanta IRA for not only a list of those events, but also just some other general good information as well. And I don't see that we have any other questions, so at this time I'd like to thank everybody who participated live today. And again, anyone who is watching this on a recording, before I do that, I did have a question just come in, and let me read this one, a little bit long. The question was going back to the issue of a Roth 401k and moving that money. And it said, going back to my previous question, the employee deferred contribution would be tax-free, but the defined benefit from the employer, the profit sharing, would be taxable. And that is correct. Again, with the 401ks, you have with any 401k, you have two components. You have the employee deferring a portion of their salary, and you have the company doing an employer's match as well. The employer's match is always a tax-deferred contribution by the employer. So any amounts that the employer has contributed to the 401k, if that's being rolled to an IRA, or Roth IRA, I should say, that is going to be taxable. But the Roth 401k portion, your salary deferral, would not be. So it is possible if you were doing a 401k rollover, you can split. You could take your Roth portion, your Roth salary deferral, put that into a Roth IRA, no tax consequence, and your deferred compensation for the more traditional type funds, you could also roll those into a traditional IRA, so there's no tax consequence there as well. So you wouldn't, when you do that, you're correct in your question, you would not have any tax consequences at the time of the rollover. So I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar today. Again, if you have questions on watching this after the fact or watching a recording, please don't hesitate to contact me. My information is here on this last slide. I'll be happy to answer any questions by email, by phone, or set up a time as well. I thank you very much for participating today.